Welcome, avid readers of Christian fiction. I am so excited about our conversation today. I'm talking to Cathy McCrumb about this amazing book,
Thank you.
Recorder, and it just released, and it's your very first novel.
Mhm.
So exciting. Okay, so start by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, that always I always like get a deer in the headlights look. So if I
Like, what do I know about
yeah, yeah,
myself?
I'm like human and yeah. Um, I have 5 kids and I've homeschooled them off and on. My oldest is growing up and she like goes away and works and goes to college and it's my youngest is still short. So if somebody comes barging in, that's probably gonna
The
be yeah. So, um, this is my first book. I've always liked telling stories. I've always told them. I think my first thing that I remember was Sally. She was from Clap Hands Land,
okay.
very original, and she threw the man's hat up in the air. I remember Sally threw the man's hat up in the air, and I thought that was hysterical. I don't know why, but
So you knew
it,
you were going to write science fiction from way back, right?
or at least fantasy, I guess, because Clap Hands Land, as far as I know, is not actually on the map.
Yeah.
So, but I went to college. I took a class in creative writing, and that was really fun. It was just what I liked doing. But when I got married and had kids, I put it all aside.
Mm.
And I was when we moved recently, and I was just going through boxes, and I found this piece of paper, um, and it was like, dear God, I want to write. I want to tell stories,
Mm.
and I'd forgotten. So a couple years ago, I was working at the library, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, you ought to just write stuff down." And then another friend challenged me. She's like, "Oh, well, that was a very interesting dream, but where's the story that goes with it?" And so I started writing, and I didn't have a computer. I had a Kindle, so I thumb typed the whole
Oh, I
recorder.
cannot believe that.
So, well, I had gone to a thing at a library. I worked at a library, and I walked into work, and she's like, "Give me your badge." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting fired from the library." And she said that there was a meeting of romance writers, and she wanted someone to sit in on the meeting. She's like, "Just pretend that you're regular." And I'm like, "Okay." So when I was in there, I had said something, and one of the novelists who wrote very steamy fiction said, she said, "Do you want to write?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, I said, "I don't have time." She said, "Do you have 5 minutes?" Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
So that's when I pulled out my Kindle and I started thumb typing on my Kindle in 5 minutes spare. And I would email it to myself and edit on break at the library. So
that is so amazing that you were
then, yeah.
able to do it.
And one of my friends eventually sent me a secondhand computer. And uh, so then I started, but I didn't write a book on the computer until like the past year and a half. It was
That is
all on both
amazing.
my thumbs. So
I love it. Okay, so Recorder. So one of our favorite things to watch is Stargate. And I felt like I was
yes,
in an episode of Stargate as I'm
did you
reading
really?
this
That's
book. It is
fantastic.
so fun. Okay, so I love um the premise is there's a she is a recorder and she has a drone that is with her and she's grown up being this recorder that she records all the events around her. She has access to like information. So she's a human, but she's made kind of robot like. But you could tell she has emotions and thoughts. And in fact, my daughter, I was listening to the audiobook in the car,
Mhm.
and she's like, "What is this book?" She's 18. I want to listen to this book. When are you gonna be
Oh,
done with this book? Like you can
yay.
listen to this book. So the cool thing is, it's like I felt like I was in an episode of Stargate as I'm listening to Recorder. Or I started reading it, then I got the audiobook because I get so impatient when I'm cooking dinner and stuff. I want to actually listen to. I read out loud part of it to my husband, who's a huge
Oh,
like science
really?
fiction fan. He was interested. So what I love is like you've captured in this recorder, this person, everyone's imagination in our whole family. So that's super
Oh,
cool that we
that is
all
super
enjoyed
cool.
it. Yeah, and like Stargate or those we my husband had all the kids watch all the very old Star Trek, like, you know,
Mhm.
the old Leonard Nimoy Star Trek. And so we kind of are fans anyway, but I haven't until recently read this. Usually I'm like historical fiction, but I think you've done an excellent job. And it's so cool
Thank you.
that you just started like in 5 minutes a day. Cause I think so many people
Mhm.
feel like I need to go away to a cabin and have all this
Mhm.
time. Oh, Yeah, so Patrice said, Cathy loves Stargate too.
I do. I do.
Well, it definitely came out in the book.
Well, thank you. I
Yes.
wanted to get kind of a team feel for some of the characters. I mean, obviously not all of them, not all at once, but
And
that's like
I love all their personalities. They seem very different personalities, which is also fun too. Because you know, in some books, like everyone seems like the same personality.
great,
So it
great.
was super fun getting in. So, um, were you saying like the recorder part started as a dream, or how did you get the idea for actual this book?
For this book in particular, I had a dream and I just got up and I wrote it down. And when I wrote it down, it's basically what is now chapter 2.
Okay.
Um, and um, and that so there was that. But I was talking with my friend at work, and we'd been talking about all kinds of things like um, what it means to be different, how it is to
Mm,
fit in, how there are some people who can't be heroes because they're too weird or they're too different and you can't identify with them, about how some people feel deeply but they can't communicate it,
wow.
and politics and current events and blah 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 blah. So
Right.
but skipping all that stuff, it started as a dream, and I remember I was writing it, and I actually wrote out the first chapter by hand, and then later thumb typed it. Okay. Anyway, um, so when I wrote it down, I was like, oh, oh, because they were all there. There was Jordan, there was
Mm.
Timmons, there was Alec, who had a slightly different name at the time, and Dubois and Max, and it was all told first person. I'm like, I can't write a book without contractions. Why does this have no contractions? But as I wrote, I'm like, oh, that's why it has no contractions. A total discovery writer
Mm.
thing, and it kind of fed in when I think I've told people this 1,000 times, but when my daughter was little, I was working for a company that did standardized testing scores, and so I'm driving home from the late shift. It's like 11:30 at night, and the first sentences I think of chapter 16 popped into my head. And so I'm like reciting, Kylie dreaded the first moments of when the spaceship left dock. And I recited it the whole way home. I got home, I wrote it down. I'm like, I have no idea where that goes. So 20 years later, I'm writing this up and I'm like, oh, it goes here.
No way.
So yeah. So it's things just kind of braid.
I love that so much. And what I love is like when we sit down to write, we may think, well, I don't know this, I don't know that, I don't know how things are going to tie together, I don't know what's going to
Mhm,
happen. But it's the joy of writing is the
mhm.
discovery of what
Yes.
happens along the way. Yesterday, I'm working on a novel. Let's do Monday, by the way. We won't talk about
Oh,
that. But I wrote this scene and I wrote this little clip of a scene. And then later, when I got to that part in the novel, I'm like, oh, this person's going to say this. And it went this whole different direction than I even expected, which
well,
is like
that
a
is so cool.
miscommunication. It's so fun. So I love that, whether it's thumb typing or writing it out, you allowed yourself to explore, to let your
Mhm,
thoughts go, to realize like, oh, this piece 20 years ago kind of fits in here now. And that was something else that happened to me. I had written a part of a novel and like put it away, and then I had an editor call and asked me if I wanted to write a Titanic novel. And I'm like, I don't have an idea. And suddenly that idea that I had,
mhm.
it was probably 10 or 12 years before. I'm like, what if I take that story idea, which is the prodigal son modern day kind of, and put it on the Titanic, and then suddenly it
Oh,
was like
that's so
already
cool.
part written. All of a sudden now they're on the Titanic, and so I love how through our lives, like God will put this idea there, that idea
Mhm.
there, and we have no idea, and then suddenly you're a published author with your first book,
Ah,
and it's sitting there. So yeah, so I love that you did that and you were able to explore, and this came out of it.
thank you. It's funny because I feel like if I had wanted to write this story, because I've wanted to write this story for ages, but I mean a story, any story,
Right.
something. Um, if I had tried to write it 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so every single thing that happens to each of us can be used and woven together to make something beautiful and new. And I think that's one of the beauties of how God works, that even the things that are difficult that happened in the past can come through and be something new.
Yeah.
So
I love it, and I could already tell. I'm not all the way through it yet, but I can tell like the threads you're weaving, like with characterization and her emotions. I'm like, I could see these things are going to be coming out, and then there's giant cockroaches. So I don't want to give too much
yes,
away.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yes, there.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I was cooking dinner, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's cockroaches, and I'm hoping my children don't think like there's cockroaches in my house, but I'm like talking to the book. I'm like, yeah, this is such a cool sci-fi book because what book,
Yeah.
science fiction book? I mean, you got to have some giant cockroaches in there.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to say that was not like, that was not supposed to be. I'm like writing and I'm like, really, 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 for real. Um, yeah. So I can't say that because of spoilers, but yeah.
Yeah, we can't go anymore. I was even wondering like, should I even mention that? But it's pretty.
No,
That
I
was
feel
like in
like,
chapter like 4 or 5, so we're
yeah, yeah, it's pretty early on. So I kind of like one of my friends that started reading it, she's like, you need some sort of warning on this one because
that part.
she's like, okay, you need to have a disclosure here. Giant bugs. Well, they're not bugs. Different species, different genus. They're not actually bugs.
Okay,
So
yeah, I
you don't
love
want
that.
to know how much research I did to make those things work. You don't even
Oh,
want to know the
that's the
math
joy.
involved. Yeah. Oh my word. No, don't. I'm
More than you ever want to know, right?
yeah, more than I needed to know. Well, not that I needed to know. Probably more than I need to know. But yeah.
I love it. Okay, Kristen asked, is it a standalone? Will there be more books in the series? Are you working on something else?
So this is the first book in a trilogy.
Oh,
And the
good.
second book has already been turned into Enclave. And I'll tell you, there was for an author perspective and a debut author, that was even scarier than submitting the book because I'm yeah. So
So now your second one is
yeah.
turned in.
My second one is turned in. I'm taking a break before I start on the third one. And okay, you mentioned historical fiction. I love historical fiction. Actually, probably most of the books on my shelf over there are historical fiction, not sci-fi. So don't tell the other sci-fi people.
Don't tell the
Um,
Enclave people.
yeah, well, yeah, they probably know already. But so I've been playing around and writing Regency romance flash fiction. Yes, it's true. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Whatever gets those creative juices going, though, right?
yeah, well, it's like you kind of need a break from the big thing that you were doing. I mean, I don't know how you managed to get so many books, so many good books written. I really don't. I
Well,
don't
they're
really.
like this genre and that genre and this genre and yeah.
So
So
yeah, but it's I just needed a break, I think, from what I was doing before I go back into the world. Um, so
very
yeah,
cool. Well,
so
good. Then you're gonna deep dive back into.
I am, and I already know where it ends. I mean, I'm a discovery writer, but I discover scenes out of order. In
Mhm.
case you can't tell from 20 years ago to now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, the I know how it ends.
Yeah. I do that too. I
Mhm.
write completely out of order, and then I
Do
kind
you
of
really?
weave
Yay!
together.
Out of order
Yeah.
people unite, band together.
Exactly. So I know exactly. I'm writing an Amish mystery right now. That's the one that's due
Oh,
Monday.
cool.
So I have okay, this suspect, this suspect, who really did it, and then I kind of weave it all together. But I
Nice.
write all those big scenes first, and I think sometimes it helps. Like, and I tell people this when I speak at conferences: if you have a scene in your mind, even if you know it's gonna be later, or like you said, like the
Mhm.
end of book 3, get it down. Like, get that. If it's there, put it on paper. Maybe you'll get there and you won't use it, but you don't want to lose it, basically.
Right. And not just that. I mean, you could even what I've done, there's been a couple things that I've written way out of order, and um I don't know almost every character that has 3 or 4 short stories that I have
Mm.
on my computer about them, because that's how I discover my characters. I don't have a character sheet where I sit down and I write out, oh, he's 6'1" and has green eyes and blonde hair, and
He's
she's
15 centimeters taller than the recorder, or what?
yes, yes. Oh my word! And the centimeters. I grew up with standards, so I'm like trying to turn everything into metric, and I'm like, nobody's gonna know.
I know, because I'm like, he's 15 centimeters taller than her. How many inches is that? But it
Yeah, pretty
like the whole
much.
thing though, the whole thing definitely has the feel of, like I said, like a Stargate or any of those, because it even starts with personal recorder Zeta 452 four
Yeah.
two nine one
Or
zero. Like
yeah,
it's
yes,
her because she's a recorder. She's
yeah.
recording things, and so
Mhm.
it's very much fits with that genre.
Yeah, Zeta 45421-9545 epsilon.
You know it. You go,
How
girl.
many times have I typed it? Yeah.
You know it. Polish Station. Yeah, so it's super fun. And like I said, my daughter was like, "What was that book you were listening to?" And I'm gonna listen to that
Oh,
book. And
good.
yes, so I love it. But okay, another cool thing. Look at this cover.
Didn't
Like
Emily do a gorgeous
it
job on
is
this?
so good. I love the cover, and even your name kind of looks like it's a hologram, even though it's not a
Isn't it
hologram.
cool?
Yeah, but it looks kind of hologramish. So
It looks so cool. I mean, that and the title,
yeah, it looks
just
so good.
it looks so good.
Yes, Kristen said Emily is the best. So we'll just put that in there. Show Emily is the best. Okay, now I first heard about this book. Well, I met you at Railmakers
Mhm.
because I was sitting there trying to get to know people. You're like, oh my gosh, it's Trisha Goyer. And I'm like, hi, what is your name? It was pretty fun. But
I
then
shelved your books. I worked at a library. I
I know
shelved your books. I'm like,
I was just trying to be incognito there, just like sitting there chatting away. It was super fun. But then Steve Lobby, who I've known for a gazillion years, since 1994, so 27 years to be exact, because that's how old my son is, and I was pregnant with him, is like, okay, there's this book called Recorder. It's amazing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to interview Cathy for avid readers of Christian fiction.
thank you.
He's a hard one to please. So if Steve Lobby is raving about your book, then that's some high praise right there.
That
So
was amazing.
yeah. So tell us about, as a first time author, the publishing process. Has it been like you anticipated, or has it been different?
Um, I feel like the whole thing was orchestrated by God, quite honestly.
Mm,
The only reason I couldn't go to Realm Makers, but then the year before last, they did the virtual thing, and
mhm.
they said, because it's virtual, they're going to do like you can bring a +1 with your ticket. And somebody said that they would give me their +1. So, and then I got up in the middle of the night, and there was like, oh, an opportunity to talk to Steve Lobby. And I'm like, I better take that before it's gone. And sure enough, they were gone in the morning.
Yeah,
And so pitching is really hard.
it is hard
It is so hard. And
because we're writers. We like to write.
right. But it was funny when he I was talking to him, and he said, you want to sit down or something? And and I'm like, okay, what? And it's like I told one of my friends, I'm all, he's calling me to tell me he doesn't want my book. She said, they don't do that, honey.
No.
But he's like, you can scream if you want. I'm all, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get the words
When he
out to
told you he
say
was going to publish your book?
that he wanted my book. And he did say this could be a standalone, but you'll probably get hate mail if it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So no, it's a trilogy. But it
So
was
not
really
only do I
hard.
want your book, but I want you to write 3 books.
Mhm. Yes. And so the thing that was really hard is like this had been my baby
Mhm.
and in my heart, and it had my title, and it had these things, and that wasn't what it wound up with.
Mm.
And so letting go of some of the things that were important to me. And it's kind of like I told somebody the other day, it's kind of like sending, you've raised your kid, you send them to college, and then they leave.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I feel right now. She's graduated college and she's gone. I mean, she's not gone, but you know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You understand what I'm
She has
saying.
her own life.
Yeah.
She
So
has her
now
own life,
she's,
and every
yeah,
reader is gonna interpreter, going
Mhm.
to interact
Mhm.
with her, going to do all the things.
One of the things that I realized, during the process, and it was hard, it was so hard, just letting go
Mhm.
and giving things over, um, one of the things I realized is it's not my story anymore. She's not
Mhm.
my recorder anymore. She's yours.
Yeah.
She's the reader's recorder, and once I realized that this is for reader, whoever she is, not mine, it was easier because it's no longer my book.
Mm.
It's yours. So that was just, and that actually makes me less afraid to do things as well. Other than, talking to a bunch of people online. That's still scary.
You're just talking to me. Other
That's
people are
true.
just listening in.
Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. Didn't your mother ever tell you it was rude?
I love that.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, so someone said, "My book arrived today. It's beautiful. I'm so excited." I can't see who that
Yay.
Facebook user is, but thank you, Facebook user, for
Thank you, Facebook
letting us
user.
know. Yes, and so I just love that, talking about that, because it is true. Like, once we're done with the book, it's
Mhm.
like it's on my shelf. I'm listening to it when I'm making kitchen. Like, I'm interacting with it. You have no idea. You had no
Yeah.
idea yesterday that I was in there making dinner and listening to your book, or driving
And
my
then thinking,
daughter.
roaches. And the kids are like, ew, mom, not in the food.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I love this comment. Yes, the recorder is our precious now. That's great. I love that. Okay, so I have to ask. Okay, after you're getting to book three, so we're
Mhm.
getting taking a little break, writing some short flash fiction. Do you have thoughts of other books that you're gonna write after this, or?
I do. I do. I mean, I could probably go on in this universe ad nauseum
Mhm.
until people said that they were done and please stop. But, um, I have this, okay, just in my head, I have these, okay, skip those. Moving aside, this is why I write and then I can edit instead
Yeah,
of talking to people live because now I can't edit out that. Um,
you're right.
wouldn't it be really fun though to have to have like a buddy cop story with like an investigator and a recorder that's attached to this.
Mm,
That would be really fun.
that would be really good.
That would be really fun. But no, I have most of my stories on my head are actually fantasy stories.
Okay.
So um, I have one story that I'm just playing with it. So yes, I have lots of stories. I have stories in this world and then not. There's a story that I wrote that I'd love to finish up. Um, that actually is kind of in this world, but it's like 450 years before. And it's
Okay.
just this tight. I'm like, I wrote it and I'm like, this is hard science fiction. I've never written that before. And then somebody tells me, oh, this is hard science fiction. I'm like, no, it's not. That's people in it. It's about the people. But I guess it's too sciencey to be most of it.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
love it. It is. I mean, it is. Recorder's very, like I said, it's like an episode of Stargate, or it's like you're walking with these people that seem very real, but it's also they seem very real. So I think that's a sign of good fiction. Is like we're in
Thank
this world,
you.
but it's not like, oh, that's kind of weird. It's like, okay, cool, we're in this world. Like, what's around here?
Yeah.
Giant cockroaches. Okay, or
Yeah.
whatever. Pods.
Hashtag
I see
sorry,
some.
not sorry. I mean,
Yeah, but that's super fun, and I love that. You can totally. You created a whole world. You can do whatever you want with that whole world, but then also you can like fly to another world because you're gonna create another
yes,
world.
I
So
can. I can.
I love that.
So yeah, I'm just playing around with words right now and realizing I if I'm going to do this for real and be a real author, I need to have other things going so that if somebody says, "Hey, what are other things?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have this great idea for a gas lamp fantasy," which I do.
Good.
Which, wouldn't it be a gas lamp YA fantasy in Victorian England with like sisters and
So is gas
plane
lamp like
heist?
steampunk? Is that the same? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not it's in this world, so it's not I guess you could say it's more like alt history.
okay, yep.
So it is a fantasy novel,
So the
but it's
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen type of.
yeah, kind of like that. So and I have a really fun idea for it's just all kinds of ideas.
I love it.
Um,
And my assistant and one of my best friends, Kristen, is laughing because she's always like, "You should read this book, and you should read this book." And I'm like, "I don't read that kind of book." I get our Realm Makers, and I'm reading all these books, and I love them. And so she's like,
I
"See, I
know.
told you." So it is
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I think that the really great thing about when you read like broadly is that you get all these ideas and you can
Mhm.
process things so differently. I mean, there are times when I need to read something more like a historical
Yep.
novel, and there are times when I need to read fantasy, and there are sometimes when I have thoughts and I'm like I'm hashing through them, but they're too close to what I'm thinking to live now.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
have to put them either in the past or in the future or in another world altogether,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's good. Okay. One other thing I love, and it's right near the beginning, so I'm not giving anything away, is the caterpillar's eyebrows. Eyebrows as caterpillars. I'm like, of course, a kid but not used to hair because she has no hair would like,
Right.
why are there caterpillars on that person's face and it's their eyebrows? That was just something that made me laugh out loud. So
Yes. I think she's adorable, but
yeah,
I'm kind of biased,
yeah,
I should be biased, I should be
exactly.
biased about my recorder.
Yes,
But
yes. Okay, so do you know when book 2 is going to be out? Is it?
it's going to be out next November.
We have to wait.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Wait.
okay.
Sorry.
And then book 3 will be the November after that.
Mhm.
All
Which is
right.
really great because it'll be right in time for getting good Christmas presents.
That's true.
All the sci-fi people in your life.
It's true. Yeah,
Easy,
I'm
easy
trying to
purchase.
I'm trying to figure out. I have some sons. They might have to share. I don't know. They're big sci-fi. My oldest sons are very big sci. Kristen said, "Waiting so long."
Oh, I know.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
and Patrice said, "Isn't that prologue the best?" Yes. So the prologue is excellent.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So super fun. I am so glad. Okay, one question that they always want me to ask that I always forget are what have been some books that you've enjoyed? Doesn't even have to be like in the last year, but so what are some of your favorite Christian fiction books?
I love um, No Other Will Do by Karen Whitemeyer.
Okay,
Saying your name right?
I
Whitemeyer?
think so. Am I? Yep.
Oh yeah, Whitemeyer.
You're like looking
Okay.
over your shelf.
No, I'm looking at my shelf. Um, Robin Pearson's book. Um, oh my gosh, it was so good. Um,
I got the audiobook. I have not listened to it yet.
oh,
So
it's so good. You need to listen to it. So it's totally not science fiction. Um,
that's okay.
I love Lindsay Franklin's story.
The Story
Weary.
Peddler.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yes,
And
I'm in the middle of the second one, the Story Raider right
oh,
now. I paused her book to go to yours, but I will get back
oh,
to you. Don't worry, Lindsay. I will get back to those books.
but her I love the world. I love the magic.
Hmm.
Um, I love
And the
Morgan
message.
Bessie's books. Yes, and Morgan Bessie's books. Um, I loved Patrick W. Carr's Cast of Stones. Is it Cast of Stones? Yes, A Long Time Coming by Robin Pearson. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's that's probably one of my favorites for this year.
Oh,
I
good.
like a bunch of indie authors. RJ Conte, anytime she comes out with something, it's like guaranteed that I think I've reread her. Oh gosh, I'm gonna blank out on the title. Um, anyway, my fault.
Stick it in the
Yes,
comments.
I will do that. So I love her books and just so many talented authors. It's hard to actually pin it down to, oh, I like this one. I love Julie Klassen's novels and I'm going blank. So I'll tell
You're
you what,
good.
I'll like type a bunch of stuff in the comments.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do.
I have read so many people that I've never read before because I kind of get in my same people like
Mhm.
Tamara Alexander. Well, because they're really also really good friends, and we plot books together. And so then I'm like,
Well,
oh,
you
I got to
kind of
see
have
if
to
our
then,
ideas.
right?
So like
Yeah.
Tamara Alexander and Francine Rivers and Robin Lee Hatcher and
Mhm.
so I kind of get in the same. But this year I've been reading like all these different people that I've never read before. And the amazing thing is, I mean, there's such good writers out there, and I say that about your book
Mhm.
too. You did such an
Thank you.
excellent job, and Lindsay's book, and Lonnie Forbes, I've read, the Seventh
Oh, I
Son,
haven't
and
read
I'm
those
just
yet. I
like
need to.
reading. I'm like, these are such talented people out
Mhm.
there, and I love that. Yes, we still have our favorites that are still
Oh,
uber
yeah, yeah.
talented, and we love them. But I love that it seems like there's this whole new crop of writers that are coming up that are just blowing
Mhm,
me away. So it's super fun
mhm,
to discover these people. To if, like the end of last year, for you to said are 90% of the people on your favorite books of the year going to be new authors you've never read? I'd be like, what are you talking about? But it's been super fun to explore and try books. And so I
mhm.
encourage you people out there, like, yes, like, read your favorites, don't stop reading them, but try some of these new people because I've been so impressed by what I've been reading and what I've been enjoying. And like I said, my family is like, I can't believe you're reading that, and can I have it next?
Yeah.
My husband's listening to Secrets in the Mist by Morgan Bessie.
Yes.
So, and he's like, that is really good. So I love that I can even share with my own family, like, hey, read this. Like I said, I was reading
Yeah,
out loud your book to my husband the
yeah.
other day.
Well,
So,
the chances of my 22-year-old son wanting to read a historical romance, Christian historical romance, are very, very slim.
right. Yes.
Very
Not going to
slim.
happen.
Right, so, yeah, I would say, yeah, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, and, so it's been really exciting to, I mean, just this one of the reasons I was very fortunate when I worked at the library, and I wasn't a librarian. I was just like shelving books because I
Hmm.
needed a part-time job I could do in the evenings while when my husband came home from work. And I got to shelve like all the genres.
Mm.
So, oh, I'll remember later and put it in the comments. But Lisa Berkran's books
Oh,
and
yeah.
like I said, Patrick W. Carr, and I'm like, wow, these people are so talented. So it's just fun to read, and I balance between mystery and romance and historical and sci-fi and fantasy and nonfiction. So I'm a bit eclectic. I'm one of those people.
Hmm. I wasn't until this last year. So now I'm trying all these new things. And you know what else? This would make a really good TV show, like
Oh, you
series.
think so?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wouldn't you love to see her like walking around?
That would be so weird. I don't
Yeah.
even know if I could handle that. That would be so weird.
I mean, you could just totally picture her just like
Mhm.
on the screen.
Yeah. So
Okay.
thank you. That was
We
a
can think
cool thing
we
to
can think
say.
about we can think about that next too.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It's a good thought.
It's a
You gotta
good thought.
think big. See, you didn't
Think
think that
big,
you'd be
think
doing
big.
having this, so
Well,
right?
no, because it's like if you had told me a year and a half ago
Hmm.
that you would be holding your novel, I would have laughed. First off, I would have been terrified because you'd be talking to me, and I was like, "But she's a real writer." So,
I think all of us feel that way. Like, ooh,
no.
am I a real writer yet?
Yeah, yeah. So, I think it's a matter of like really letting go of things and trusting God. If God wants that to happen, it's going to happen
Yep.
whether I feel like it or not. So,
Yeah, I love it. All right, so
so
where can people go to find more information about you and Recorder?
well, I have a Facebook page, Cathy McCrumb author,
Okay.
and I have an Instagram account, which I'm learning. I didn't even have an Instagram account until like last December, so I'm just kind of muddling my way through. Um, I have to take pictures. Yeah, so Nat
And
Geo is never going to hire me. I'm just going to tell you that straight up, just so y'all know. That was my life goal when I was in high school to be a photographer. They're never going to hire
they're
me.
never gonna hire you.
Never going to hire me. And I have a website that I'm figuring out. I am not by nature a web designer, so it's kind of creeping its way into existence.
But wherever
So
books are sold,
wherever books are sold.
they can find Recorder.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kathy, thanks for being here. You're
Thanks so
awesome.
much.
I think
Thank
your book's
you.
awesome. I'm enjoying
Thank
it.
you. I'm
And
glad you are.
except for the cockroaches, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's a hashtag sorry, not sorry. I mean, they had to be there. It's funny because I
They
was
have to
talking,
be there. Yeah.
yeah, something big has to do the thing does, so the thing can
Exactly.
happen to the thing.
You have to read to chapter 5 to figure out the thing we're talking about.
The thing.
That's exciting.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Thank you very much.